So in this module, we're going to be taking a look at the mechanisms of sleep and a little bit on dreams. I'm not going to cover too much on dreams because dreams are basically a theory. There's no real way to study actual dreams and the meaningful actual dreams. There are just different interpretations of what dreaming actually means to someone. So I want to talk about the biological rhythms and sleep is associated with a different kind of brain activity. Theories of why we need sleep, sleep deprivation and sleep disorders, which is the topic I find more interesting, and what and why we can dream, which is a topic don't really I don't really find that interesting, but many people find dreaming very interesting. So to sleep is obviously to dream, and if anyone believes that they don't dream at all, they are totally incorrect. We dream multiple times a night. We may dream up to, 4, 5 times a night. Every sleep cycle, we're dreaming. You may not remember any of your dreams, and if you really want to remember your dreams, it's best to utilize a sleep journal or a dream journal, and you put it next to your bed. And every day when you wake up, you immediately go to that journal before you do anything else and write down everything you can remember about your dream. And if you keep doing this with the sleep or dream journal, you will then start remembering more and more about your dreams. Most of us generally don't fixate on our dreams, and we go about our daily lives. We make coffee, we have breakfast, we get dressed, and by that time the dream is completely out of consciousness. You're not thinking about it, and you're not going to remember it. Also, when we're sleeping, we're not really unconscious or dead to the world. The brain is very active while we're sleeping, and sleep is a form of consciousness. Consider that we move around a lot in our sleep, but we stop ourselves from falling out of bed. You're twisting and turning and rolling over, but somehow we maintain the ability to keep ourselves in our bed. We don't fall on the floor repeatedly, and if you do fall on the floor repeatedly, then it's something that needs to be checked out by a sleep specialist. So we are conscious about the confines of our bed. We also incorporate real-world noises into our dreams. As I mentioned in the last module, that you can have a dream by having the TV on, and you incorporate things on the TV into your dreams. So in my example, it was the UEFA Champions League. But if you have like a horror movie on or a movie about aliens, then all of a sudden you're going to have dreams about aliens. And so what's on the TV and the noises that are in your immediate surrounding will make it into your dream. So you are conscious of your immediate external environment. And some noises, such as our own baby's cry, wake us up more easily than others. So new mothers will easily awaken to their baby's cry. They're kind of built biologically to respond immediately to their baby's cry more easily and wake up immediately to that cry compared to other noises. How do we learn about sleep and dreams? We use EEG, which is electroencephalography. Those are the electrodes put on your scalp, and they measure brain activity. So if anyone's ever been in a sleep study, that's the first thing they'll do is hook up these electrodes to your scalp, and that tells you what kind of stage of sleep you're in and for how long you're in that stage of sleep. You could also monitor muscle movements during sleep. This is EMG, electromyography. And some people have restless leg syndrome where they keep having to move their leg, and this can be useful for diagnosing that. If you want to check out what a sleeping person is dreaming of, you can wake them up, or you can expose them to noises or words and see if they can remember them later on. One way is waking somebody up while they're dreaming. So if they're dreaming, you can see their eyes moving back and forth rapidly. So dream sleep is also known as REM sleep or rapid eye movement sleep. And obviously you only do this with people you're very close with, because otherwise it's going to be a problem. Once you see those eyes moving back and forth rapidly, shake the person and wake them up and ask them what they're dreaming of. And you'll get a very detailed account of what they're dreaming of. They may not be very happy with you, but if you really wanted to study sleep and dreams, that's a good way to study it. Now, all sleeping occurs on a circadian rhythm, a biological rhythm. And this biological rhythm is a 24-hour clock. and it sets our sleep-wake patterns. So most of us get up in the morning when the sun comes up, and we go to sleep at night when the sun goes down. That's your circadian rhythm or biological rhythm. It's the body's natural 24-hour cycle, day-night cycle. And some of us that work the night shift will have an inverted circadian rhythm. So that means that their circadian rhythm will be such that, when the morning comes, they have to sleep, and when the night comes, they have to be awake. This causes a huge problem. The huge problem is that the one mechanism that sets this circadian rhythm is the sun, or a light source. And the sun is our primary light source. So when the sun comes up, it tells our brain, it tells our circadian rhythm, it's time to get up. And when the sun goes down, it tells our brain, it sets our circadian rhythm in a manner where it's time to go to bed. And if you're fighting the sun, setting the natural circadian rhythm, then you're going to have a problem. You're not going to want to be awake at night, and you're not going to want to be asleep during the day. And you have to constantly fight nature. So if you're working at night shift, you're always tired because you're constantly fighting against nature and against the natural circadian rhythm of getting up in the morning when the sun comes up and going to sleep at night when the sun goes down. There's a few ways to overcome this. The main way is to block out your windows, or blacking out your windows in your apartment or house that you live in, so that no light enters your room while you're sleeping. So you want to trick the brain into thinking it's dark, it's nighttime. So don't let any light in. And the other method is, when you're awake at night, expose yourself to very bright artificial light. So if you expose yourself to very bright artificial light, you could kind of trick the brain into thinking it's daytime. And then the circadian rhythm will adapt more easily. So these are two ways or methods about sort of dealing with the night shift and the possibility of the inverted circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is a 24-hour biological clock, and it generally keeps us awake during the day and asleep at night. Besides sleep, it also regulates body temperature, arousal, and energy and mental sharpness. So most of us that are on a regular circadian rhythm, we get a lot done in the morning, we have a lot of energy, and then as the night comes on, we start getting tired and we want to go to sleep. Another problem with the circadian rhythm is among blind people. So blind people have this condition, this non-24 condition, where since they don't receive any light at all, so they don't see the sun, they don't see artificial light, their circadian rhythm keeps shifting. So every day their circadian rhythm will change. And they might find themselves getting up in the morning and going to sleep at night, and then a few weeks after that, they're getting up at night and going to sleep in the morning, because they have no idea when it's day and when it's night, because their circadian rhythm cannot be set by the sun or any artificial light. And so a lot of treatments into helping blind people regulate their circadian rhythm are now underway. And that's an interesting line of research. Medication can also set the circadian rhythm. There's a medication called Rosarum, which kind of helps the part of the brain that controls the circadian rhythm better sort of shape the circadian rhythm appropriately. And that's a sleeping medication that works on melatonin. Sleep stages in the sleep cycle. So the sleep cycle is 90 minutes long. And in those 90 minutes, we go through a variety of stages. And the best way to measure the sleep cycle, and this is something that's happening in a sleep study, if you're going to go to sleep study, is you go to a room and they hook you up first with the EEG. They put these electrodes on your scalp, and this records what brain waves are being elicited. And there's a different brain wave elicited in each stage of sleep, and they can monitor how many sleep stages are you going through, how long is each sleep stage, and is there any abnormality. As I was mentioning, the sleep stages are distinct patterns of brain waves associated with consciousness and different aspects of sleep. And there are four main types of sleep. And these four main types of sleep are basically repeated over a 90-minute stage or 90-minute cycle. So every minute, 90 minutes, we go through a different sleep cycle, and you go through the various sleep stages. You may not go through it in the same order all the time, depending on how sleep deprived you are, but you will go through the various sleep stages. So here's a look at the sleep cycle and different brain waves associated with each stage. So when you're awake and you're attentive, if you look at the top of the screen, you're in beta states. So you see that rapid brain activity. You see all that spiking going on. This means that you're very alert and you're very attentive, just like you are listening to this lecture, right? You're in beta state. Now, when you start getting relaxed and you start becoming non-attentive and you're starting to get ready for sleep, you start adding in alpha waves. Your eyes start to close, and see how the brain waves kind of slow down. Now you see alpha waves. These are slower waves of sleep. So the brain is slowing down, but you're not asleep yet. You're just very relaxed. If you meditate or you undergo hypnosis, you generally also enter this alpha state. Now you're starting to fall asleep. Your breathing starts to slow down. The brain waves become slower and irregular. You slowly change from alpha state, which is relaxation, to something called non-REM 1. And non-REM 1 is the initial first stage of sleep. Non-REM 1 only occurs once a night on average, at the very beginning of sleep, and only lasts between 10 and 15 minutes. Here's a look at the different stages of non-REM sleep. So you go from the alpha relaxation stage automatically into REM 1 sleep. You see that these waves here are even slower than alpha waves. So the brain is slowing even excessively down. This is the very light phase of sleep that you enter initially once you start sleeping for the night. It only occurs at the beginning of the night. It only lasts about 10 or 15 minutes. And you could be easily awoken from non-REM 1 sleep. So this is that phenomenon if you fall asleep and you wake up 10 minutes later and you felt like you've been asleep the whole night, you don't know what's going on, and then you check your clock and you've been only asleep 10 minutes. So within this short time period, you could be easily awoken from sleep. After those 10 or 15 minutes of non-REM 1, we progress into the major part of the sleep cycle, the most frequently encountered part of the sleep cycle, the non-REM 2 state. And in this non-REM 2 state, we have rapid bursts of activity occurring at different points. So you may see at the beginning of non-REM 2, of what's depicted on the screen, is you have this rapid burst of activity. This rapid burst of activity is called a sleep spindle. And sleep spindles are the major abnormalities associated with non-REM 2 sleep. And after that rapid burst of activity, you see that it slows down, the waves become irregular, they're slowing down, they're more spread out. And then you enter another rapid burst of activity a little bit later. And then you see this mountainous crater of a waveform, and this is called a K-complex. And the significance of spindles and K-complexes are theorized, but there's not really a firm understanding of why these disturbances occur only in non-REM 2 sleep. And then if you look further down, you can see non-REM 3 sleep. Now the waveforms are becoming even more spread out. So let me go back to non-REM 2 for a while. See these slower waveforms? These slower waveforms in non-REM 2 are called theta waves, Theta, theta waves. And they're much slower than the alpha waves that you see in the very relaxed state. And you see a combination of alpha and theta in the non-REM 1 state. So I just wanted to mention that goes along with non-REM 2. In the non-REM 3 sleep stage, you see very, very slow waveforms. These very slow waveforms are called delta waves. So stage 3 is called slow wave sleep. As you can see, it's very slow, high amplitude, but low frequency waveform. And it's in non-REM 3, this very deep sleep stage in which many sleep disturbances or abnormalities occur. So your sleepwalking occurs a lot of times in non-REM 3, sleep talking, and in rarer cases, sleep eating, and even sleep driving, which is basically driving, but and ending up on the side of a road somewhere, and then you don't know how you got there. And these are rare events, but they can occur. I mean, it can even occur where you're sleep eating in your bed. You wake up, you have food in your bed. And some people have even had to put locks on their refrigerators at night because they'll sleep while they're not really awake and they don't realize that they're eating, and they go back to sleep, and they wake up in the morning and there's no food in the fridge, and it's because they were eating while they were sleeping. So it can be a problem. Not as significant as sleep driving, but it can be a problem. Both sleep eating and sleep driving tend to be associated with the use of pharmaceuticals to aid sleep, such as Ambien and possibly Lunesta. Well, mostly Ambien gets this bad rap for these conditions. But Ambien helps a lot of people, and it's not a bad sleep aid. It's just that in some cases, there are some of these abnormalities occurring in non-REM 3 sleep. So now we move to REM sleep, which is dream sleep. REM sleep is also known as paradoxical sleep. So your heart rate rises and your breathing becomes very rapid. And your eyes are also moving back and forth really quickly. So you can see like a fluttering under the person's eyelids. Then you know they're in rapid eye movement sleep or REM sleep. They're dreaming. REM sleep is another name for dream sleep. In some cases, people experience sleep paralysis, which is kind of a sleep disorder. And this occurs when they're coming out of REM sleep. So they're between REM sleep and becoming awake. And during REM sleep, the body is paralyzed. So the brain is very active, as you can see from the graph below. You see the image below of the really frequent brain patterns or evoke responses, right? So the brain is very active, but the body is paralyzed. And that's why it's known as paradoxical sleep. But sometimes there's this lag between being asleep and having the body paralyzed and waking up. And so if you're between being asleep and waking up, you may open your eyes, but the body is still paralyzed because the brain is kind of slow getting out of REM sleep. And so your eyes are open, but your body doesn't move, and you're like trying to get out of bed and you can't. And you're like struggling to break free, and people get very nervous and they develop anxiety because they can't get up. And it's because of the lag between the brain being in REM sleep and the body being paralyzed. And then 30 seconds or a minute later, they're able to break free and everything's okay. And this sleep paralysis tends to occur more when someone's sleep deprived, or if someone has the sleep disorder narcolepsy. Also, while you're in REM sleep, your genitals are aroused. And this has nothing to do with the content of the dream. Most dream content is not sexual, but genitals are aroused. So it's a way of like preserving function in the genitals by having them be aroused during REM sleep. So here's a list of the different sleep stages. Non-REM 1, 10 to 15 minutes once per night at the beginning of the night. And then you progress to non-REM 2, which is theta waves, sleep spindles, K complexes. This is about half of the duration of sleep. So this is the stage that you're in the majority of the time. This is kind of your intermediate stage of sleep. It's not very deep, but it's not light like non-REM 1 is. Non-REM 3 is your deep sleep. This is characterized by delta waves. This is where you get sleepwalking and sleep talking possible. And it's 30 to 40 minutes initially, and then it decreases as the night goes on. So you start out with more non-REM 3, and as the night goes on, it decreases. Non-REM 3 is the deep sleep stage where the body repairs itself. So the body also produces growth hormone during non-REM 3, and the growth hormone is responsible for repairing the wear and tear on your body. And it's even been implicated in arthritis among elderly people. So elderly people have a decrease in non-REM 3 sleep as they get older. And they also report more wear and tear and osteoarthritis, pain in their body, painful joints, etc. And it's possible, there's one idea out there that's possible that the growth hormone is not being secreted enough in elderly people, and that's the reason why they're developing wear and tear and osteoarthritis. And that's a very interesting possibility. You also see human growth hormone used by athletes. So the athlete gets a little bit older, and they start, they don't bounce back from the wear and tear of the previous day's events. And so it's hard for them to perform consistently at a high level because their body just can't take it. Their body's just too beat up. And they start taking growth hormone, and all of a sudden their body bounces back like they did when they were like 10, 15 years younger. And they feel rejuvenated. And that's why it's illegal, because it gives them an advantage. But athletes have looked for human growth hormone and have tried to kind of push the boundary on it, right? Since the drug testing hasn't necessarily caught up in all circumstances with human growth hormone. And then finally, during REM sleep, the brain is very active, as you saw, but the body is paralyzed. It's paradoxical sleep. And this increases as the night goes on. So you're going to have multiple REM periods and therefore multiple dreams in one particular night. The interesting thing about REM is that you will also get REM rebound, or you will get an increase in REM if you're sleep deprived. So if you pulled an all-nighter or you were up the night before, the next night you will get more REM sleep, and you will actually start by going into REM. So you'll skip all the other sleep stages and go directly into REM to make up for the REM you didn't have the night before. And this is called REM rebound, and it's very important. So REM sleep is kind of necessary for us, and if you don't get enough, your body will catch up automatically. There's also during REM sleep where memory formation is boosted. So if you don't have enough REM sleep, you're not going to form the memories of the previous day's events, and obviously learning is not going to be boosted by a decrease in REM sleep. So it's very important to get the right amount of sleep and to not pull all-nighters, because pulling an all-nighter decreases REM sleep, and therefore it decreases your ability to remember the information that you're studying. Here's a picture of the sleep stages. So you start out obviously awake, right? And then you start into NREM1, and then you transition from NREM1 into NREM2, and then you transition from NREM2 into NREM3, and then you go back to non-REM2, and then you skip non-REM1. You don't go back to non-REM1. You go now into REM sleep. So your first REM cycle is about 90 minutes into your night of sleep. And then you go from REM back to non-REM2, non-REM3, non-REM2, REM. Right? And then you keep doing that over and over again. And even if you wake up, you may start back into a non-REM1 cycle for a very brief period of time, but then you're going to progress to the non-REM2, non-REM3, non-REM2, REM. And as the night goes on, REM is getting longer and longer. So the REM period, your dreams are getting longer and longer. And non-REM3 is getting shorter and shorter. So by the end of the night, your non-REM3 is basically gone. And you're spending a lot of night into REM. If you look at older adults, their non-REM3 doesn't even start out at the beginning of the night. So in young adults, you're getting a lot of NREM3 at the beginning. In older adults, you're not getting a lot of NREM3 or non-REM3. You're getting mostly non-REM2. You're getting REM. You're getting enough REM, but you're not getting enough non-REM3. As a result, the wear and tear that's repaired by human growth hormone secreted in non-REM3, it's just not there. And so older adults don't get that restorative deep sleep that they need to repair their body. And as a result of that, they just feel beat up. And that might be because lead to the cause of osteoarthritis, or one of the causes. As you can see, their REM cycles are a little bit less than what you would see in younger adults, and that could lead to decreases in memory, which you may find in certain older adults. How do you get older adults to have more deep sleep? We don't really know exactly at this point. I mean, you give them a sleeping pill, they're still not going to get more non-REM3 sleep. So it's not as simple as that. There may be another substance that they're working on to try to help older adults get more non-REM3, and maybe that will lead to a decrease in osteoarthritis. It's yet to be seen at this point. Why do we sleep? So the amount of sleep and our pattern of sleep is determined by our biology, our age, our culture, and of course individual variation. So this idea that we all need 8 hours of sleep, this is not shown by the research. Some people need 8 hours of sleep. Some people need 7 hours of sleep. Some people need 6 hours of sleep. Some people need 5 hours of sleep. Others need 9 hours, 10 hours. When you start getting below 5 hours, you're really pushing the limit. Most people are not operating efficiently on less than 5 hours of sleep. And most people that are sleeping more than 11 or 12 hours a night, 11 hours a night, that's a lot of sleep, they generally don't need that much sleep. So that's classified as hypersomnia, and that can be associated with a depression state, possibly. But there's a lot of individual differences. When we're very young, we need we need a lot of sleep when we're infants, obviously, and we need more sleep as children. But as we get older, we can get by on a little bit less sleep. So newborn infants need 16 hours of sleep. Adults need 8 hours or less. In many cases, adults are not getting 8 hours. There's individual genetic variations. Some people need more, some people need less, but you probably need between 5 and 10 hours of sleep. And culture-wise, North Americans sleep less than others because we use artificial light all the time. I mean, if you're in New York, there's light everywhere. It's a city that never sleeps, and that's not good. But we're generally used to sleeping with lights. We're exposed to artificial lights at night. We're exposed to TV at night, and all of these sources of light will interfere with our sleep. We also work a lot. We work a lot more than some people do in the rest of the world, so more work usually equals less sleep. Light and brain do regulate sleep. They do set the circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is affected by the impact of light on the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So as you can see below, light enters the eye. It goes through the pupil to the back of the eye called the retina. And then the retina, through the optic nerve, influences something called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. The SCN is the part of the brain that sets the circadian rhythm. So that SCN, in the presence of light, will tell the pineal gland to stop making melatonin, the hormone melatonin. And when the pineal gland stops making melatonin, we become less drowsy and we become more awake. And that's how light gets us to become awake, is it has the suprachiasmatic nucleus tell the pineal gland to stop making melatonin, and we wake up. When it's night out, the same thing doesn't happen. Light does not enter the eye unless you're exposed to a lot of artificial light, which is why I said you shouldn't be exposed to artificial light before you're going to sleep. So if light does not enter the eye through the pupil, it does not reach the retina, and it does not influence the suprachiasmatic nucleus, as a result, the pineal gland is continually producing melatonin, which makes us tired and go to sleep. So the only thing that stops melatonin production is light, whether it be the sun or a lot of artificial light. What does sleep do for us? Well, it protected our ancestors from predators. If you were sleep deprived, you were more likely to be attacked by predators. Sleep restores and repairs the brain and the body. This is happening during non-REM3 sleep with the production of growth hormone. Sleep builds and strengthens memories. This happens primarily through REM sleep. Sleep facilitates creative problem solving. This is mostly non-REM3 or deep sleep and REM sleep. And as I mentioned before, sleep is when growth hormones are activated. This is non-REM3. So you need a variety of stages of sleep. You just don't need REM. You just don't need running on REM3. You need all of them. If you don't get enough sleep, then you look like this guy. You're just not too happy. You can't think. Some of you may be alarmed because you're not sleeping that much. You're going to gain weight. So lack of sleep leads to the increase in weight and the increase of appetite, and also the increase of fat accumulation around the stomach. So you will gain weight. You also get sick because lack of sleep decreases the function of the immune system. So you're going to be more prone to colds and viruses. You'll become irritable. You'll feel old. Your body will ache. Your muscles will ache. You just feel like you don't want to move around. You just feel beat up. And a lot of you realize that because you've all probably pulled all-nighters at some point or another. And when you were younger, yeah, you could probably bounce back a little better from an all-nighter. But as you get older, that all-nighter is not tolerable anymore. Now you can't function at all. Now you just feel your joints, everything just starts hurting you, and you just can't think at all. And so you need to have an adequate number of hours of sleep. You can't just sleep on the weekend and be up and working and running 2 jobs and studying for school during the week. It's just not going to work because you accumulate sleep debt. So your brain knows like how much sleep you didn't get. And, it takes about 2 weeks of normal sleep to catch up on that sleep debt. So you can't just hold the sleep for the weekend and kind of try to keep yourself awake during the week to get everything done. It just you're not going to work optimally. You're going to get sick. You're not going to learn. You're going to have problems at your job. It's just not worth it. Set aside time for sleep every night. Here's a list of the long-term effects. Your attention will decrease. You have increased risk of depression. If you're bipolar, lack of sleep will trigger a manic episode. You have definitely an increased risk of high blood pressure. So if you're sleep deprived, your blood pressure will spike. That can lead to cardiovascular problems. It could lead to stroke, heart attack. Your immune system will not function well. You're going to increase the production of fat cells, especially around the abdomen. It's also going to lack of sleep is also going to increase the hunger arousing hormone ghrelin. So you're going to want to eat more. So if you're going to want to eat more and you're going to produce more fat cells, it's a bad combination. Your joints will become inflamed. You'll develop arthritis, and your muscles will become weaker, and you'll slow your reaction time. Now, this is not like a week of sleep deprivation or 2 weeks of sleep. This is chronic sleep deprivation for several months. There was even a study where freshman college students were severely sleep deprived for a period of a couple of weeks. And after that period of a couple of weeks, the majority of those college freshmen started showing signs of prediabetes. So their blood glucose levels went up and they became pre-diabetic after a few weeks of sleep deprivation. And that's a serious. Now, they all returned to normal once they went back to sleeping normal. But that just shows you even a short period of sleep deprivation can lead to long-lasting and dangerous health outcomes. You even see more accidents following a time change. So when you spring ahead in the spring, when we lose an hour of sleep, the next Monday after the time change, there's more accidents. And the same thing when we gain an hour of sleep in the fall. There's less accidents the following Monday. So that's a change of 1 hour in sleep. And that change in 1 hour causes all kinds of problems. And it takes about a week or so to adjust to the time change. But the following Monday, increase in accidents when we lose 1 hour of sleep. So how do you sleep well? Here are some tips. Turn your lights off, turn your TV off. Eat earlier, drink less alcohol and caffeine. So no caffeine past noon. Caffeine's a stimulant, can keep you awake. And obviously, limit your alcohol. Alcohol will put you to sleep, but it'll put you in a shallow stage of sleep. So you won't get the non-REM 3 and the REM sleep that you need. You're going to get mostly non-REM 2 if you're drinking on a regular basis. So drinking is never the solution for sleep problems. Get up at the same time every day. This one's a real problem for some people, even the weekend. That means no sleeping in on the weekend. Get up the same time every day. Doesn't matter when you go to sleep, you just have to get up. And that will help entrain your circadian rhythm or set your circadian rhythm. And you have to do this probably for a month straight. And it's difficult on the weekends when you want to sleep and you can't. But if you're having some serious sleep issues, get up at the same time every day. Exercise. Cardiovascular exercise, aerobic exercise is best, and exercising in the afternoon is best. You don't want to exercise less than 3 hours before you go to sleep because that will get your body activated and aroused. You want to give yourself some time to cool down, but daily aerobic exercise really works for sleep problems, for insomnia. And also, if you look at blue-collar workers, like people that are doing physical labor, whether that's in construction or landscaping or when they're carrying things or moving movers, where they're doing a lot of physical exertion and physical activity, those people rarely have problems falling asleep. They're just exhausted. They fall asleep right away. Most of the problems with people sleeping are white collar workers. They sit in front of a computer and they're at their keyboard. They're not exerting themselves physically. And as a result, they may tend to have more trouble falling asleep. And so exercise is very important, especially for that group of individuals. Don't check the clock. You'll start becoming paranoid and anxious. You're looking at the clock going only 6 more hours, only 5 more hours, only 4 more hours, and you start getting worried. And the more worried you get, the less you'll sleep. So don't check the clock at all. Turn the clock the other way around. Set the alarm. Don't look at it. Don't get paranoid. And if you can't fall asleep in bed for 30 minutes, get up and do something, relaxing. You might want to read or listen to some relaxing music in another room. And when you start to feel tired, go back into bed. Don't just stay in your bed for hours on end, not being able to sleep. Try to limit to 30 minutes at a time. Get up and do something else that's relaxing. And finally, if all of this doesn't work and you're still having serious problems sleeping, get counseling for anxiety and depression. Because anxiety and depression cause many, many sleep problems. And these are treated. The sleep problem will go away once the cause, the root of the problem, whether it's anxiety or depression, gets treated. And that takes me to sleep disorders. Sleep disorders are very interesting. The first one is insomnia. We've all been there. You can't fall asleep. You're miserable the next day. Or you fall asleep and you get up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep. That's insomnia. I've personally had it. It's horrible. You feel tired, exhausted. You just don't know what to do yourself. And we're all frustrated by this. However, there is a condition out there, a rare, very rare genetic condition called fatal familial insomnia, or FFI, where people stop sleeping forever, and eventually they die of not sleeping. And so every time you have regular insomnia, you could just be thankful that you don't have FFI. And I'll show you a video at the end of the module, for the week on FFI, and you can watch the really rare but interesting case of people that very few people in the world have it, but it is a genetic condition that causes the person to stop sleeping. Eventually, they hallucinate. They eventually become mute, and over a period of months, they will die from it. It's a horrible, tragic condition. Narcolepsy is a lot more common than FFI. It's still relatively, rare disease, though. And narcolepsy is when people have sudden attacks of something called cataplexy, which is full body paralysis, cataplexy. And they enter REM sleep at random times. And that means they just pass out, right? They just fall asleep into REM sleep. And it could be if they're driving a car, it could be walking downstairs, it could be watching a movie. Cataplexy, or full body paralysis, is generally brought on by emotion, some kind of strong emotion. But this can keep people from living a full life, right? I mean, you have to take a lot of medication to stay awake, and you have to be careful when, about entering the state of cataplexy. So obviously you can't drive or operate heavy machinery if you have narcolepsy. I will also show you a video on narcolepsy. It's pretty interesting. Sleep apnea is a very common disorder where people stop breathing when they sleep. So you can hear people snoring loudly and then gasping, like gasping for air while they're sleeping. And it's the fact that is that they're not getting enough oxygen. So they actually wake up for a few seconds to get a deep breath of air, and then they fall asleep. But since they're only awake for a few seconds, they have no memory of being awake. However, this being awake for a few seconds breaks up their night's sleep, right? Their sleep is totally fragmented, and they become extremely tired, almost like they haven't slept all night. They may say, "Oh, I slept 8 hours." They may remember sleeping 8 hours. They don't remember waking up, but they've actually woken up many times for a few seconds to take that deep breath of air in. As a result, their sleep is so fragmented, they're exhausted. So they're exhausted all the time. The case of the train crash in the Hoboken terminal was a result of the train conductor having sleep apnea. He had sleep apnea. He wasn't getting a proper night's sleep. He was always tired, and he actually fell asleep at the train, and the train went out of control. It sped up at the end, and it just flew into the air in the Hoboken terminal, and it basically totaled the whole terminal. Killed one person, could have killed many, many other people, and that was the result of sleep apnea. People falling asleep at the wheel on the road can occur from sleep apnea. So sleep apnea is a very dangerous condition. It has to be diagnosed with a sleep study, and it can be treated. I mean, there's a sleep app machine where you put a mask over your face, and the machine delivers continuous oxygen throughout the whole night. And that basically cures sleep apnea. And people that are on this machine feel so much better. It takes a little bit getting used to sleeping with a mask, but they feel so much better when they're on the machine that they get a night's sleep and they get this continuous oxygen. And finally, you have REM behavioral disorder, where people act out their dreams. So normally, when you're in REM sleep, your body is paralyzed. But in REM behavioral disorder, the body does not become paralyzed, and people start acting out their dreams. And these dreams tend to be nightmares. And so people are acting out their nightmares. They're screaming, they're thrashing in their bed. It's a very disturbing condition, a pretty rare condition as well. So I will post videos for FFI, narcolepsy, and REM behavioral disorder for you to check out. And they're really interesting disorders. And thankfully, they're not too common. Sleep apnea is a problem. It's very common, but it's also treatable once it's diagnosed. In addition to these disorders, some children have night terrors where they have this sudden scared behavior. So they're not dreaming. They're not in REM sleep. They're generally in non-REM 2 or non-REM 3, but they start screaming in their sleep. And they're very difficult to wake up while they're screaming. And children have these night terrors. They can get them at a young age, and they may have them every night for a while, and it becomes very difficult on the parent especially to deal with them. But mostly all children grow out of night terrors when they get older. Nightmares, for instance, are different than night terrors, that night terrors occur outside of REM sleep, and nightmares are always dreams. They occur within REM sleep. Sleepwalking, as I mentioned before, and these behaviors occur primarily in non-REM 3. They are not considered dreaming. So now we get to everybody's favorite topic, which is dreams. Not my favorite topic, but everybody else's favorite topic. People like to analyze their dreams and figure out parts of their life from their dreams. And so what do we dream about? Unfortunately, most of our dreams are failure dreams. We've been attacked, we've been rejected, we have bad luck, we've been pursued. Someone's chasing you, you're falling. And these aren't pleasant dreams, and most of our dreams are not pleasant. Dreams are often not sexual. Dreams generally do not. So even though you experience sexual arousal while you're dreaming in REM sleep, the dream content is often not sexual. As I mentioned before, we reincorporate real-world sounds into our dreams. And dreams also include recent events, so images from recent events or traumatic experiences. So people with post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD generally have nightmares of the traumatic event on a regular basis, and that's a serious symptom. They have bad sleep disturbances of the trauma. Now, the major person that put emphasis on dream analysis was Sigmund Freud in his psychoanalytic theory. He's really the only theorist that looked into depth in terms of dreams, and Sigmund Freud believed that there's often a hidden meaning of the dream called the latent content. And that hidden meaning expressed conflict or worries and urges that were sexual and aggressive in nature. A lot of times, if you couldn't express these urges in real life, these urges would seep through to your dreams, so you could express them in your dreams. Now, this hidden content you would have to figure out based on the actual plot of the dream. The actual plot of the dream is called the manifest content. That's what's going on in the dream, and the latent content is the hidden meaning that reflected the sexual and aggressive drives of the id. And Freud put a lot of emphasis on dreams. He analyzed dreams. He thought dreams were one of the means of accessing the unconscious. But most other theorists have not emphasized dreams like Freud did. So all those dream dictionaries that you may go on online, dream analysis websites, etc., these are all psychoanalytic in nature, because really that's the only perspective that emphasizes dreams very much. And all of that stuff is fun, but does it really have a meaning? I don't know. You have to ask yourself that question. So what do we dream of? As I mentioned, we dream of negative events. 8 in 10 dreams are negative events or emotions. Only 1 in 10 dreams among men are sexual, and only 1 in 30 dreams among young women are sexual. And the most common content is the previous day's experience. That's what we're dreaming about. So a lot of times you're dreaming about what just happened that day. You're incorporating these things. You're incorporating them into memory, so you memorize what happened, what you learned during that day. That's why it's important to get enough REM or dream sleep. Here's a look at some of the dream theories, and I'm not overly concerned or interested in these theories. They're not testable, so they're just ideas. As I mentioned before, the psychoanalytic theory, which is Freud's wish fulfillment, talks about dreams as a psychic safety valve, so you express things you couldn't express in real life. in your dream. You also have the information processing theory of dream, where dreams help us sort out the day's events and consolidate our memories. That kind of makes sense. It's not too flashy or super interesting, but it's kind of like what happens, sorts out the day's events, help us form memories. Physiological function of dreams talks about dreams as a way of preserving neural pathways. So it's kind of like the housekeeping done in the brain. Neural activation talks about that we weave random visual images into weird stories of dreams. So that kind of, so you take these images that you've been exposed to during the last day and you kind of try to put them together and make sense of them. And the brain weaves them into a storyline. And that's why you have those weird dreams that are things are not connected. And you're like, this is crazy. How does this go with this other thing? And you can't figure it out. It's just a really weird dream. That would be explained by this neural activation theory. And finally, cognitive development theory, where the dream content reflects the dreamer's level of cognitive development, their knowledge and understanding. These are all possible ideas of why dreams occur, but the one that gets the most support and the most elaboration, of course, is the wish fulfillment psychoanalytic dream theory. That's the only one that's really studied or really talked about, especially in the psychoanalytic therapeutic perspective or context.